September 26, 1983. Deep inside a secret Soviet military bunker south of Moscow, sirens begin to scream. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov stares at his console as red warnings flash across the screen. The computer system is unambiguous. 5 nuclear missiles, launched from the United States. Impact in minutes. Every second of delay reduces response time. Every moment of hesitation brings those warheads closer to Soviet soil. The protocol is clear, drilled into every officer at this facility. Report the attack immediately. Set the retaliatory machinery in motion. Launch before the missiles hit. Petrov's hand hovers over the phone that connects directly to Soviet High Command. One call, that's all it takes. One call to report what the computers are screaming at him, and the chain of events becomes irreversible. He doesn't make the call. For the next 23 minutes, the fate of hundreds of millions of people hangs on a single question. Is Stanislav Petrov right, or is he condemning his country to annihilation without response? This is the story of the man who refused to start World War I, the powder keg. To understand what happened that September night, you need to understand just how close the world was to the edge. 1983 wasn't just another year of Cold War tension. It was arguably the most dangerous year since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union and the United States had spent decades building nuclear arsenals capable of destroying civilization multiple times over. Thousands of warheads, hundreds of delivery systems, submarines lurking in the depths. Bombers on constant alert, missiles in silos fueled and ready. Both sides operated on a doctrine called mutually assured destruction. The logic was simple and terrifying. Neither side would launch a first strike because the other would retaliate, guaranteeing both nations would be destroyed. Peace through the promise of mutual annihilation. But this balance required one critical assumption, that both sides would have time to retaliate, which meant both sides needed to detect a first strike immediately. Which meant both sides built elaborate early warning systems, which meant both sides needed to trust those systems completely. And in 1983, trust was in short supply. Earlier that year, President Reagan had called the Soviet Union an evil empire. The rhetoric was escalating. NATO was deploying new intermediate-range missiles in Europe. The Soviets were convinced the West was preparing for war. Then came Korean Airlines Flight 7. In September 1983, just weeks before Petrov's shift, Soviet fighters shot down a civilian airliner that had strayed into restricted airspace, killing all 269 people aboard. The international outcry was immediate. Tensions reached a fever pitch. The Soviet leadership was genuinely paranoid. Intelligence reports suggested NATO might use an upcoming military exercise, Able Archer 83, as cover for an actual first strike. Some Soviet officials believed war was imminent. Into this atmosphere of suspicion and fear, the world's most advanced military technology was deployed. Systems designed to detect nuclear launches within seconds. Systems that would give leaders just minutes to decide the fate of the world. Systems that, as it turned out, weren't quite as reliable as everyone believed. Serpukhov 15. The secret facility was officially designated Serpukhov 15, though it went by other names in classified documents. Located in a bunker complex south of Moscow, it served as the nerve center for the Soviet Union's early warning satellite system, known as OKO. OKO was the Soviet answer to American surveillance capabilities, a constellation of satellites in high orbit, constantly watching for the infrared signatures of launching ICBMs. The moment American missiles left their silos, Soviet satellites would detect the heat plume and transmit warnings to Serpukhov 15. From there, duty officers would verify the alert and report to Soviet High Command. The entire chain from detection to report was designed to take less than 5 minutes. Speed was everything. The missiles would arrive in under 30 minutes. Every second mattered. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov was not supposed to be on duty that night. He was filling in for a colleague, taking a shift as the duty officer for the command center. His job was straightforward: monitor the satellite feeds, verify any alerts, and report immediately to military leadership. Petrov was 44 years old, an experienced officer but not a typical military hardliner. He had a background in engineering and had helped develop the OKO system. He understood its capabilities. He also understood its limitations. That understanding would prove critical. The system was designed with redundancy and verification protocols, but it also operated on a fundamental principle. When the computers said missiles were launching, you believed the computers. The technology was sophisticated. The satellites were positioned specifically to detect launches. False alarms were considered extremely unlikely, so when the alarm sounded, there was no reason to doubt it, except Petrov did, the alarm. Just after midnight, the command center erupted. Warning sirens designed to cut through any distraction filled the bunker with their urgent wail. On Petrov's console, the word launch appeared in bright red letters. One missile, detected by satellite, launched from a US base. The room snapped into crisis mode. Officers moved to their stations. procedures activated automatically. The system was doing exactly what it was designed to do, alerting Soviet command to an American first strike. Then the screen updated, 2 missiles, then 3, 4, 5 intercontinental ballistic missiles arcing through the upper atmosphere heading toward the Soviet Union. The computer assigned the alert the highest confidence level. This wasn't a tentative reading. The system was certain. The Americans had launched. Petrov had minutes to respond, maybe less. The protocol was unambiguous. He was required to immediately notify Soviet military command. From there, the information would reach the highest levels of Soviet leadership. They would have to decide, was this the first strike they had feared? Should they launch a retaliatory strike before the incoming missiles destroyed their capability to respond? The doctrine of mutually assured destruction depended on retaliation. If the Americans believed they could strike without response, the entire deterrent collapsed. The Soviets had to launch, had to respond. Had to ensure that even if they were destroyed, they would take the enemy with them. But Petrov didn't pick up the phone, hashed the doubt. What went through Stanislav Petrov's mind in those moments? He would later try to explain, but how do you articulate a decision made under unimaginable pressure, with the fate of nations hanging in the balance? He looked at the data. 5 missiles. The satellites were certain. The computer confidence was maximum. Every indicator said this was real, but 5 missiles made no sense. Petrov had studied American nuclear strategy. He understood their doctrine. If the United States launched a first strike, it wouldn't be 5 missiles. It would be everything. Hundreds of missiles, thousands of warheads, a massive, overwhelming attack designed to destroy Soviet retaliatory capability before it could be used. 5 missiles couldn't accomplish that. 5 missiles would leave the Soviet arsenal intact, which meant the Soviets would launch everything they had in response, which meant the Americans would face total destruction. No rational military planner would launch just 5 missiles. It made no strategic sense. But could Petrov bet the world on that logic? He had no confirmation from other systems. The ground-based radar stations that would track the missiles after they descended hadn't picked anything up yet. But that didn't mean much. The missiles were still in the upper atmosphere. The radars might not see them for several more minutes. By then it would be too late. Petrov also knew something else. The OCO system was new. It had only been operational for a short time. He had worked on it. He knew it wasn't perfect. He knew there could be glitches, but a glitch that showed 5 separate missile launches, that seemed unlikely. Still, 5 missiles from the Americans seemed even more unlikely. He made his decision. He picked up the phone, but not the one to high command. He called his superiors and reported a system malfunction. False alarm, not an attack. Then he waited, 23 minutes. Imagine those minutes. Petrov has declared the alert false. He has not reported an attack. If he's right, he's prevented a catastrophic mistake. If he's wrong, Soviet missiles sit in their silos while American warheads streak toward their targets. The command center is in chaos. Other officers are demanding action. The computers are still screaming about incoming missiles. The protocols are clear. Petrov is deviating from every procedure. He has no proof the alarm is false, just intuition. Just logic, just a guess that the Americans wouldn't do something so strategically nonsensical. Is that enough to bet civilization on? The ground-based radars still show nothing. But they should if missiles were really coming. The timeline is getting tight. If there were actually ICBMs inbound, the radars should be tracking them by now. Still nothing. Minutes crawl past, each one an eternity, each one bringing either vindication or devastation. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 23 minutes. No missiles, no explosions, no nuclear fireballs turning Soviet cities into ash. Nothing. The alarm was false. Hash the truth. Later investigation revealed what happened. The OCO satellite had detected something, but not missiles. It was sunlight. Specifically, sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds at just the right angle to mimic the infrared signature of a launching ICBM. A trick of light, a quirk of orbital mechanics and atmospheric conditions, a technical glitch that the sophisticated Soviet satellite system interpreted as nuclear war. The system had done what it was designed to do, detect thermal signatures and report them. It just couldn't distinguish between the heat of a missile launch and the reflection of the sun. 5 separate detections because the satellite's orbit and the cloud positions created 5 separate reflection events that matched the signature profile. A malfunction just as Petrov suspected, but he hadn't known. He couldn't have known, he guessed. Hash the aftermath. You might expect Stanislav Petrov to be celebrated as a hero, the man who saved the world, the officer whose judgment prevented nuclear war. That's not what happened. Petrov was reprimanded. He had failed to properly document the incident. He had deviated from protocol. He had not followed the procedures that existed for a reason. Soviet military was not interested in admitting their sophisticated early warning system had nearly triggered World War of sunlight on clouds. The incident was classified. Petrov was quietly moved to less sensitive duties. He retired in 1984. For For years, almost nobody outside classified Soviet military channels knew what had happened that September night. The story only emerged after the Cold War ended, when details of the incident were finally declassified. Petrov gave occasional interviews, always uncomfortable with being called a hero. He insisted he was just doing his job. He made a judgment call. He got lucky. He died in 2017 at age 77 in a small apartment outside Moscow. The man, not the system. Here's what haunts me about this story. The system worked exactly as designed. The satellites detected signatures. The computers processed data. The alerts activated. The protocols engaged. Everything functioned perfectly. And it almost killed us all. Because in the end, the system couldn't account for the one thing that mattered: context, strategic logic, the human ability to look at data and ask, does this make sense? Stanislav Petrov saved the world not by following the system, but by questioning it, by trusting his judgment over the computers, by choosing uncertainty over the false confidence of technology. He had no proof he was right. He had logic, intuition, and a willingness to take responsibility for a decision that could have doomed millions. We build systems to remove human error. We create protocols to eliminate judgment calls. We design technology to make decisions faster and more reliably than people can. But on September 26, 1983, the world survived because one man refused to trust the system. He chose doubt. He chose to wait. He chose to think. And in those 23 minutes of uncertainty, he may have saved us all.